would like to thank you all for joining this presentation. And today I would like to talk to you about the project that we made that had one particular challenge of handling almost 1.5 million products. So a little bit about me. I'm a PHP developer. I've started 10 years ago as a freelancer, and I'm doing this professionally right now for about 4 years. And I started developing within Magento 2 ecosystem from beginning of 2016. So getting back to this subject of this presentation, we had a client that came to us and said that, you know, we already have this store on Magento 1, and we would like to do a relaunch on Magento 2. But we have almost 1.5 million products. Can you do this? And to put things more into perspective, we have almost 1.5 million simple products. We have almost 4 million of the images related to those products. We have only one store view, and we don't have any special customer groups or pricing. So generally the question would be, what could possibly go wrong with that amount of data? So we had a few challenges in this project. First of all was to get the products into the system, because nobody is going to go to the admin panel and create almost 1.5 million products by hand. Then we had to update those products, because every 2 days we receive an update file which has to be imported. And it's around 50,000 products every 2 days. Then with that amount of products, we need to be sure that the storefront is running as fast as possible, so the user experience is the best possible that we can achieve. And generally, it is almost impossible for us to leverage caching, and especially full-page caching, because there is just too many different web pages, single pages, category pages, search pages. It's just impossible to anyway rely on the full cache. So as creativestyle, we host all of our clients on AWS, and this is the current architecture that we use for all of our clients. So here you can see the Elastic Load Balancer, which is an entry point to our application. Then we have an auto-scaling group here, which allows us to easily scale horizontally. That means when we have more load, Amazon will automatically give us more servers to handle that traffic. And this is done completely automatically. We don't do anything manually. This is done completely on AWS side. Then we have a little machine that is used for Elasticsearch and for invoking the cron jobs. We have a special purpose machine that is called import on demand instance, which is run only when we actually do the import. The reason is that we cannot import products using autoscaling, because autoscaling can just turn down the machines in any time, so we cannot rely on that. And this machine is run only when the import happens. So when we don't do any import, when we don't have a scheduled import, it will just not be run, so we don't generate additional costs. We also have a second layer of a cache, which is Redis, and we of course have a database which is placed here. For the media, that 4 million images, we use S3 as a storage for the media, and we also use the content delivery network from CloudFront that is accessing those media and returning it to the users. So first challenge that we had was importing and updating products. And we decided to do some benchmark on Magento. And we created this kind of test stack. So we had database server with 8 GB of RAM and 2 cores, and a web node that handles the import itself, also with 2 cores and almost 8 GB of RAM. And we didn't took any image upload during the import for this benchmark because it was not relative and we couldn't even upload the images itself during the import. So we run a benchmark of pure Magento with 10,000 products to see how fast it will import those products. And we received a result of 2 minutes and 40 seconds. It's not that bad, but taking in mind we have to import almost 1.5 million products, and that the import will get slower and slower with the time when the database will get full, we thought maybe we can do some optimizations. So at creativestyle, we heavily use Blackfire. This is a really great tool. Sorry. We use Blackfire. That's a really great tool that allows us to profile any type of requests, any place in the application. And actually what you can see on the right is the profile of the import process. And by analyzing this profile, we found few bottlenecks. And to keep things short, we saw that the validation of products, that means whether the product can be actually inserted into Magento, was executed multiple times. So we just cached that result, so it's not done multiple times. We saw that some of the database queries were not grouped. So Magento is dividing the import process into bunches, 100 products per each, to do the queries to the database in a grouped way, so it's more performant. And some of those queries were just not grouped, were done one by one for every product, and that was a huge bottleneck. We also found out that there was a huge memory usage. So we even couldn't run the import of this 1.5 million products on an 8 GB machine. And we fixed also that. We saw that when we updated the products, so when we already had those 1.5 million products, that the queries for the media gallery was extremely slow. And that was caused by the no index on one of the fields. And we also found out that during the validation, Magento checks whether the URL keys will not be duplicated, and is making this huge query that for 1.5 million products was extremely huge. So we had to bump up max allowed package value in database server. So we did all the optimizations, and we tested it again, and we received a result of 50 seconds. And that's even more than 3 times increase in the speed of the import process. And that's good for us, because for importing that many products, this would be very important. So we also did the same benchmark, but for the update. So we already had the full database and decided to see what happens if we want to update 10,000 products. And it took 7 minutes and 7 seconds. So we also, with all of our optimizations, we ran the benchmark again, and we had 57 seconds, which is a huge benefit for us. It's more than 7 times gain, and also this is savings for us, because as I showed you before, we have this import machine that is running only when the import is executed. So the lower we can get the times of the import, we can actually save on that machine, because it's not needed to run any longer. And to visualize it a little bit better, here are the benchmarks as a chart. So if you would take the results that we had from the initial import, the import should take around 2 hours. But that was actually not the case, because as the database grows, as there is more and more data, the import gets slower. So the full import of almost 1.5 million products took us 8 hours and 46 minutes, which is not that bad result. So next thing that you have to consider when dealing with that large number of products is how to manage indexes. So of course, after the initial import, you can reindex everything, because you don't care about time that it takes to reindex, and actually it takes around 2 to 3 hours to reindex everything. But when we do updates, we don't really want to reindex everything. We just want to reindex only the things that really changed. So we really recommend using Save on Schedule feature that is built into Magento. And what that feature does, it's tracking the actual changes in the products, which then is used to reindex only the part of the indexes that were actually changed. And this is a huge benefit in terms of reindexing things. Also, we give an advice to disable the indexers when import is executed, because if you have import running at the same time that cron jobs that is doing the reindexing, you will have a deadlock, and this will not work. And your import would crash. And also what we found out with that huge quantities of products, you have to increase the temporary table time size, because when reindexing, there are temporary tables used, and they just didn't fit all the data that we needed to process. So next thing I want to talk is the storefront performance. So at creativestyle, we believe that performance is a feature and that bad performance is a bug. So we decided to see, with the default Magento installation, using only the MySQL database, how long it will take to load the page. And the result was not so good. So we loaded a category page with almost 300,000 products, and it took 11 seconds. We also did a benchmark with a search page where we searched for search phrase that returned almost 80% of the whole catalog. And it also took 11 seconds. So with that kind of results, we wouldn't have much possibility to handle much users at the same time. So because we're Poles and we have a lot of experience standing in queues, we thought that it would be best to learn from the biggest, and we invented a queue. So only a certain amount of people can enter to the web shop and buy in it, and the rest of them have to wait. But of course, seriously, we didn't do that. We used Elasticsearch, which is the obvious choice for handling that many products. And we did the benchmark again. And we went down with the category page load to 750 milliseconds, which is a good result for that amount of products that we have. And here we have a 14 times gain. And we also did the same search, and we had a result of 1.3 seconds. So that's 8 times gain related to the native Magento functionality. To put that into perspective, the gain was huge, and we were able to handle the page in less than 1 second. Also, this is a very pessimistic situation. The number of results were quite huge. So for most of the pages, we have around 500 to 750 milliseconds response time from the backend. And that's a kind of good result for that huge shop. So last thing I wanted to say is about handling the images, because as I already said, we have almost 4 million of them. And we use Amazon S3 as the image storage. And the reasons are very simple. It's cheap, and it allows us to scale very well because we can store petabytes of data there. And to integrate S3 with Magento, we cannot use any API because it doesn't exist yet in Magento. So we used something called S3FS. And this is a program that allows us to mount S3 bucket as a folder, and in this case, as a media folder in Magento. So the pro is that this is the easiest way and most error-prone way to integrate S3 into Magento. But unfortunately, there is a con. And the performance hit we had from introducing S3FS was huge. So as you may know, when you go to the Magento storefront and want to see any type of products and images, you always get the resized versions of it. And we had an issue with the resized versions of the images because when we didn't have a resized version of an image yet, it took around 6 to 7 seconds just to load the page, which is unacceptable. But even when we had those images already resized, Magento still checks whether the image exists, just to be sure if it needs to be generated. And you had a huge performance impact. As you can see here, it was almost 50% of the time load only to see whether the resized image exists. So we implemented something called lazy resizing, which means that we don't do any type of file operations on the page load. We do it after load. So what we do essentially is we generate an URL to the resized image. This URL contains all data that is needed to do the resizing. And we have two possibilities. This URL is generated to the content delivery network. And the content delivery network asks S3 because the URL is a file path. So it asks S3, do you have this file? And if yes, then internally in Amazon, the image is returned to the user. So it never goes to our Magento installation. And we have second possibility that the resized image doesn't exist yet. So what happens is that the S3 can redirect the user to our Magento, and it is done only once. So after the first initial redirect, when the image is generated, it is saved to S3, and then it will be returned directly from S3. So there is no load on our servers. And we have some pros to that approach. So first of all, we have no impact on page load time. We only generate the URL, so we don't have any file operations. Also, we have savings because only the images that were actually requested by the user are resized. So if you would use the Magento built-in functionality and to generate all the images beforehand, then we would have a lot of resized images which were not needed, and we would pay for the storage. And last thing, the resizing is executed in parallel thanks to the HTTP2 protocol. So that is also a performance benefit because we can do the resizing in parallel in opposite to the default Magento way, which is done in a sequential way because of the PHP nature. There is one con at the moment. We don't support cropping or watermarking, but it can be added. We didn't need it for any of our customers. Unfortunately, when we are submitting this topic to the Meet Magento, we thought that the site will actually be live. But because of the procedural reasons with the client, we couldn't make it for the Meet Magento, but we are doing a soft launch. So if you want to see this website and to play with it, you can go to that URL. And this is actually how the website looks like. Okay, thank you all for joining this presentation. We are hiring, so if you would like to do this type of projects with us, please come join us on our recruitment website. And I think we have some time, so if you would have any questions, I can answer them. Okay, I think that means no questions. So thank you all for joining me in this presentation, and have a good day.